Tiki Hut Media. Pop the top on your favorite beer or whatever you drink from Tiki Hut Media. This is Soul Ramblings with Jerry Wicker.
Hey there, got my Yuengling popped open today and ready to start another episode of Soul Ramblings podcast, coming to you from the great state of Tennessee. And for those who have subscribed over on Substack to Soul Ramblings podcast, link is in the show notes, by the way, I just want to say thank you for subscribing and supporting the podcast. Seriously, no one, me included, wants to get more email. I appreciate the privilege of you inviting me into your inbox, and I hope your headspace too give you something to think about during the week. As a free subscriber, you get all the updates in your inbox, the blog posts, devotionals, alerts when a new episode of the podcast drops. You can even listen to the new episode in your email. You don't have to go to your player. Soul Ramblings is supported by generous readers and listeners just like you. We have no grants, no ads, no institutional backers, no list selling behind this project. And during these economic times, listen, I know paying for every podcast or blog you subscribe to and you like is not in the cards for everyone. I certainly can't afford to pay for everyone that I like. However, if you can afford it, would you please consider a paid subscription to help keep us going? I would really appreciate it. It's $5 a month or $50 a year. You can find more details on Substack. If you can afford it, no explanations required, no worries. We invite you to continue to read, listen, and engage for free. You can always see everything on our website on Substack. Remember, everything that's created here is meant to be shared. So please feel free to do so from the website. Go and subscribe, whether paid or free. And be sure to tell your friends about Soul Ramblings. And in the meantime, grab a beer, come on in, all are welcome, and I want to thank you for being here. And if you do subscribe, whether free or paid, you do get every Sunday morning, I have a devotional. It's called Sunday Ramblings. And this week on Sunday Ramblings, I'm going to have a special message for a little girl named Katie, and she is my goddaughter. It was, this is 2023, so it was November of 2021, I believe, maybe 2020. Time has gotten away from me. I believe it was November of 2020. But at any rate, it was about 3 years ago. She was baptized, and her mom had asked Beth and I if we would accept the awesome responsibility and the privilege of being Katie's godparents. And we celebrate that this month, along with this week, coming up later on in this month, Katie's birthday. She'll be 10 years old. It's hard to believe. I invite you to go and subscribe, and you'll see a personal message that I'll write to Katie on Sunday Ramblings on Substack. A couple of weeks ago on Sunday Ramblings, on that blog I was telling you about, I wrote a devotional and mentioned that I am in the process, or was at that time, in the process of reading a book called Think Again by Adam Grant. I have since finished that book, and I can tell you it is a challenging read about rethinking what we think we know and harnessing the power of knowing what we don't know. When we reflect on what it takes to be mentally fit, the first idea that comes to mind is usually intelligence. If we're mentally fit, we're intelligent. The smarter you are, the more complex the problems you can solve, and the faster you can solve them. Intelligence is traditionally viewed as the ability to think and learn. Yet, in this turbulent world, there's another set of skills that might matter more: the ability to rethink and unlearn. And in this book, Think Again by Adam Grant, we get an invitation to let go of the knowledge and opinions that are no longer serving us well, and to anchor our sense of self in flexibility rather than consistency. It is a challenging book. And some of the big ideas in the book, without giving anything away, is to take a scientific approach to thinking. In other words, develop more humility about what we think we know. Doubt our convictions sometimes. And be curious about alternative points of view. He does get into this thing called relationship conflict, which is generally bad, but does talk about task conflict, and that is linked to higher creativity and smarter choices. He gets into that in a couple of different chapters. And he also talks about motivational interviewing as one of the best ways to help people rethink and unlearn. The whole idea is that we can rarely motivate somebody to change their mind, to change their opinion. We're better off helping them find their own motivation to change. And he goes into some exercises about how we do that. Now, this is not manipulation. It's just to get somebody to rethink and even get ourselves to rethink what we think we know. I invite you to check the book out. I got my copy at my local library. It's available in many libraries, and you can also get it on Amazon and several other places. Think Again by Adam Grant. And we can see some thinking again, this rethinking going on in Acts 10, where in the new era of Jesus and the pouring out of the Holy Spirit, God was doing this whole new thing. Through a vision, Peter had received a new way of thinking about the people of other nations, and he was called to speak to a Roman centurion. Later, at the centurion's house, Peter also met the man's relatives and close friends, and he was able to share with all of them the good news about Jesus. Peter explained that Jesus came to save all who will believe in him. Jesus came to take away all our sin by dying on the cross, and then he rose from the dead and is now Lord over all. That was his message. While Peter was still teaching, the Holy Spirit unexpectedly came on all who heard the message. Now, this was surprising to the Jewish believers who had come with Peter that day. God was accepting even the Gentiles? Amazing. Well, the gift of the Holy Spirit had been poured out on them, so there was nothing to stand in the way of their being baptized with water. Peter, who, like other Jewish believers, had previously preferred to keep away from Gentiles. They now embrace these people from other nations, welcoming them into Christ's renewed family, which is the church. And I would say not only in the church, but in our lives, I would challenge us to go to God in prayer and experience that fresh falling of the Holy Spirit. And may we do the same and think again about our preconceived notions. And one final rambling this week. A couple of years ago, I talked about this was a bittersweet month for me a couple of years ago. Actually, it was exactly 2 years ago that my grandson Braxton was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. At first, he was at Vanderbilt University. The diagnosis was pretty bleak at that point, and he was transferred to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. That was, to be honest with you, when I got that news, was still living in Florida at the time, and I was downright scared. I was scared out of my mind. But thank God for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital and the staff, the doctors, the caretakers there. Thank God for all of them, because it's been 2 years now. He was only in St. Jude for about 8-9 months, something like that. He is in remission. It was a crazy journey. And earlier this year, we celebrated 2 years of him being cancer-free. In remission, I guess I should say. I'm praying for more of the same. Braxton is so strong, and he is gaining weight. He's got his hair back. He looks great, and he's an active young fella, and another year cancer-free. We celebrated his life, and St. Jude had sent him several pins and an ornament to celebrate his accomplishment. And I want to thank all who donate to St. Jude. As a matter of fact, here's a brief message. I told you we don't run ads here. This is not really an ad. This is more of a public service. It is a promotion for St. Jude. So take a listen.
You are not only saving a child's life, you're breathing life back into that family. We have phenomenal research, outstanding clinical care, and the generosity of public, which allow us to treat patients regardless of what it takes.
At St. Jude, families never receive a bill for treatment, travel, housing, or food because the only thing a family should worry about is helping their child live.
Because of you.
Because of you.
Because of you.
There is St. Jude. Donate now at stjude.org.
So again, to all who donate to St. Jude, you're looking and you'll see Braxton, and when you see him and know his story, you see what happens with your donations and what they do for children in a terrible situation. There are still so many kids at St. Jude. Thank you cannot do justice for your unselfish act. I'll say it over and over again. I don't care if it's $1 million or if it's $10 or if it's $1. You make a difference in a family's life. And we'll have a link to where you can donate to St. Jude. And I think that would be a wonderful way to kick off the holiday season with Thanksgiving coming up next week. Be thankful, as they say in the ad, for the healthy children in your life and give to St. Jude. You can stay in touch and get social with us here at Soul Ramblings Podcast. Shoot us an email, soulramblingspodcast@gmail.com. soulramblingspodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. Got links to those social pages in the show notes of this episode. And wherever you're listening to Soul Ramblings today, whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Music, you could be listening on Google Podcast, you could be listening on Amazon Music. There's so many places. iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, so many places you can listen to Soul Ramblings Podcast. And again, you can listen in your inbox each and every week just by becoming a free subscriber on Substack. Again, links are in the show notes for all of that. But I invite you to click subscribe wherever you're listening, and that way you never miss a new episode of Soul Ramblings Podcast. And as we wrap up today, Philippians 4:8, as we wrap up every week, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is pleasing, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence and if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. That brings us to the end of this week's episode of Soul Ramblings from Tennessee. Thanks for the gift of your time. I hope today's episode was beneficial to you. I'm Jerry Wicker. See you next week. And as always, thanks for listening to Soul Ramblings Podcast. Grace, peace, cheers.
Thanks for listening to Soul Ramblings with Jerry Wicker. Download new episodes every week. And if you haven't already, subscribe and be sure to leave us a rating and review. Soul Ramblings is a Tiki Hut Media production.